So,
Good morning, sir.
good morning, good morning. So, we'll continue the chapter 10, S block elements. Okay. So, today, instead of going through the PowerPoint slides, I have just managed to, download the ebook and then present in a Word document format where I can mark the important things from this chapter. So, the S block elements. Okay, now you know why are S block elements called S block elements. I already explained in the previous class. Okay, the elements belonging to the groups 1 and 2, which constitute the S block in the periodic table, are called S block elements. And in these elements, the differentiating electron enters into the S subshell. That is the reason. So you go through this paragraph. Okay, the possess electronic configuration of the type NS1 or NS2. And same thing, the reasons are given for P block, D block, F block. Okay, you may go through the reason for why P block elements are called P block elements. Again, here, if you look at the reason, they possess the differentiating electrons entering the ns2 np1 to 6 orbital, p orbital. Okay, that's why they are called p block elements. Now, s block, this thing I had already shown you in the previous class. Okay, with respect to the what do you call diagram. The general characteristics of S block elements also I discussed in the previous class with regard to abundance in nature, occurrence, okay, valence electrons, oxidation state, okay, plus one and plus two, nature of compounds. You should note that the compounds of S block elements are predominantly ionic in nature. This is what I have told you in the previous class. Now, number 7 is quite important. If you look at number 7 over here, number 7, just a second, page width, okay, that's fine. In number 7, if you see mm, over there, anomalous behavior of first element of group. Now, in group 1 and 2, in group 1, the first element is lithium. In group 2, the first element is beryllium. So, the first element of each group, it behaves anomalously. It shows anomalous behavior and differs from other elements of the group in many ways. Different ways are there. That is because of the following factors. All of them, they have small size. The atoms and ions of the first element of a group are much smaller as compared to those of other heavier elements of the group. This is the reason for it to show anomalous behavior. The other one is high electronegativity. The first element of a group is the most electronegative element of the group and has the highest value of electronegativity comparative to others. The number 3, a very important reason, non-availability of d orbitals. The first elements, that is lithium or beryllium, if you look at them, the d orbitals are absent in them. The d orbitals are absent in them. So, because of this, it does not contain d orbitals. The higher member of the group belong to higher periods, possess d orbitals, and may utilize them for bond formation. So, these elements, the first element of each group 1 and 2, they do not have d orbitals. Now, the next one is diagonal relationship. The first element of a group belongs to the second period, often shows resemblance, it shows resemblance over here, to the second element of the neighboring group. Second element of the neighboring group. On the right, the element placed diagonally opposite to it. So this type of relationship which you see over here, like for example, lithium and magnesium, beryllium and aluminum, boron and over here you'll get the element from the next third period over there. Okay, so these elements are said to be similar in properties. Okay, now among the above mentioned diagonally related pairs, the diagonal resemblance between lithium and magnesium is particularly striking. This is due to their comparable ionic sizes. Their sizes are similar. The ionic size of lithium and magnesium is similar. The ionic size of beryllium and aluminum is also similar. So, because of the similar ionic size, their properties are also similar, comparable. So, here in general, we can say the diagonal relationship comes into existence due to similarity in the size of the ions, okay, similarity in the electronegativity values, and similarity in polarizing power. So you must remember this. You must remember these 3 points over here properly. Okay. Why do the elements of the second and the third period, which are placed diagonally opposite, similar in properties? The reason is here. Size of ion similar, electronegativity values are similar, and polarizing power is also similar. Okay, now let us move further. Group 1 alkali metals. Now, under alkali metals, the group 1 or group 1A of the periodic table consists of elements excluding hydrogen. These elements are lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, and cesium and francium. The elements of group 1 are collectively they are known as alkali metals. You should know the reason. Why are they known as alkali metals? Because if you dissolve these elements in water, they produce strong alkali solutions. Now, occurrence due to a very high reactivity nature. These alkali metals do not occur in the free state in nature. They are always found in their combined state. That's very, very important. Usually in the form of oxides or halides, silicates, carbonates, and so on. Okay, so this thing I've already discussed in the previous class. So you go through this paragraph. Okay. Then general characteristics of alkali metals, group 1A or 1. Electronic configuration. Okay, I've discussed this in the previous class. Lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium. You should be able to write down this brief representation of the electronic configuration. It's not very difficult. For lithium, it is helium 2s1. For sodium, it is neon 3s1. Potassium Ar within square bracket 4s1. Rubidium is Kr 5s1. Cesium is xenon 6s1. Okay, so this you should be able to write it down. Then francium, it is Rn, that is for radon 7s1. With regard to the physical properties of alkali metals, the physical properties, this no need to learn this table, but we'll go through the important physical properties of alkali metals according to the discussions over here. First one, physical state. Alkali metals, they show typical silvery white metallic luster when freshly cut. This is one important physical state property. The metallic luster fades rapidly due to oxidation by atmospheric air. So when they are exposed to air, the shiny nature, the luster fades away. They are soft, malleable, and ductile. They can be beaten into sheets and they can be drawn into wires also. They are so soft that they can be cut with a knife. Lithium, of course, it is the hardest of all the alkali metals. So this sentence, I suggest you to underline and keep it. Lithium is the hardest of all the alkali metals. Okay, that was the physical state. Coming to the atomic and ionic radii, this I have already discussed in the previous class briefly. The atomic and ionic radii of alkali metals show the following characteristics on the next page. Okay, that the page number is page number 599. The ionic radii of alkali metals ions are smaller than the atomic radii of the corresponding atoms. Okay. For example, the ionic radius of sodium ion is 102 ppm, whereas the atomic radius of sodium is 186. This is higher. The atom is higher. Explanation. So Ankit already explained in the previous class why the atoms are bigger in size. Because as soon as the electrons are lost from a metallic atom, the nuclear charge, the effective nuclear charge becomes greater, because of which the remaining electrons are pulled more strongly, and because of which there is a contraction in the size of the ion which is formed. So here an example is given by taking an example of sodium atom forming sodium ion. Okay, so this is one question which can be asked. Number B, the atomic and ionic radii of alkali metals are the largest in their respective periods. So remember over here, the alkali metals, whether it is the ions or the atoms, their size, the radii will be the largest. Okay, because if you move from left to right across the period, the alkali metal atom, it is the first element of its period. As one moves from left to right in the period, the differentiating electrons are added in the same period, same electron shell, and the nuclear charge increases with increase in the atomic number. Thus, in going from left to right in a period, the number of shells remains the same, but nuclear charge is increasing with each succeeding element. Thus, the electrons in the valence shell experience a greater pull towards the nucleus. Consequently, this results in the successive decrease of the atomic radii and ionic radii with increase in the atomic number. This is why we can say the atomic and ionic radii of alkali metals are the largest in the respective periods. So that is the second question which can be asked. The third one, if you look at the third one, number C, the atomic and ionic radii of alkali metals increase on moving down the group. Now, if you move from top to bottom with respect to the atomic and ionic radii, okay, you will find that there is an increase in the number of shells on moving from lithium to cesium. So, explanation over here. As we move from lithium to cesium group 1, a new electron shell is added. So, that is the main reason why there is an increase in the size. Okay, so that was with respect to the atomic and ionic radii variation down the group. Density you can mark it, it is important. Alkali metals possess quite low densities as compared to other metals, lithium, sodium, and potassium, are lighter than water. The density of alkali metals increases from lithium to cesium. Remember that? Okay. Then after this, if you look at the explanation for the density, although alkali metals possess close packed structures, yet due to large size of atom, the size of the atom, it is large, and the densities are low. On moving down the group, however, the atomic mass as well as the size of atom increases. So this increase in atomic mass overweighs the effect of the increase in the size of the atoms. Therefore, the density of alkali metals increase when you move from lithium to cesium. But remember, there's an exception over here. Potassium is an exception and is lighter than sodium. Potassium is lighter than lighter than sodium. This is an exception over here. This you keep in mind. Questions have been asked from here. Then melting and boiling points. The alkali metals possess low melting and boiling points. Okay, because they are metallic. The metals and the melting and the boiling point decreases on moving down the group because density is of course increasing. Okay, explanation is here. You can go through it. Then number 5, ionization enthalpy or ionization energy. The ionization enthalpy or energy values of alkali metals follows the following trends. Alkali metals possess very low values of ionization energy. The ionization energy of an alkali metal is the lowest in its period. So the alkali metals have the lower ionization potential or ionization enthalpy or ionization energy. So reason over here, the alkali metal atom possesses, if you look at that, it possesses electronic configuration of the type NS1. The noble gas core shields the valence s electron from the nucleus. So the outermost electron in the s orbital, it shields the effect of the nucleus on it. Therefore, in alkali metals, the valence electron is loosely held by the nucleus and can be removed easily by supplying a very small amount of energy. This is why alkali metals possess quite low ionization energies. Now here, this is also one question which can be asked. Okay, this is I am marking it as important in the form of asterisk. Okay, this one was also important. This one was also important. Okay, then coming down to the ionization energy of alkali metals, from going from lithium down the group, it decreases. It decreases. The reason over here, in going from lithium to cesium, the distance of the valence electron from the nucleus increases. Distance becomes more, progressively due to the addition of a new shell at each succeeding limit. The increase in the number of shells causes an increase in the screening effect. The screening effect is because of the inner orbitals, which consequently decrease the effective nuclear charge experienced by the valence electron. This facilitates an easier removal of the valence electron. This is why the ionization energies of alkali metals decrease on moving down the. That means if you move from top to bottom, it is easier, much more easier to remove an electron with lesser energy. Okay. If you look at C, this one is important. This one is important. Why? Why the second ionization energies of alkali metals are higher than the first one? Reason, when an electron is removed from an alkali metal ion, the cation formed as a stable noble gas configuration. Now, if you would decide to remove another electron, we will know that the remaining electrons are held very firmly by the nucleus. Now, the nucleus would not allow to let the remaining electrons go away. so easily. That's why we will need much higher energy. That's why we can say that the second ionization energy of an alkali metal, it is very high. Okay, so reason is here. Moving to the next page on page number 600. Okay, over here, page number 600. Electronegativity trend. Alkali metals possess low values of electronegativity. In general, the electronegativity of alkali metal decreases in going down the group. It will decrease, remember that. The reason, due to the large size and low nuclear charge. Reason is here only. Then electropositive character. The alkali metals are strongly electropositive. Each alkali metal atom is the most electropositive atom in its period. Due to this strong electropositive character, alkali metals exhibit a very strong metallic character. Of course, the electropositive character of alkali metal increases in going from lithium to cesium. The reason is given over here because over here the tendency of an atom to form positive ion by losing its valence electron determine its electropositive character. That means the more easier an electron is lost from the valence shell denotes its tendency to behave in an electropositive, how electropositive it is. Okay, so that's why you have to keep in mind over here, since alkali metals possess very low values of ionization energies, they have strong tendency to lose their valence electrons. This is also the reason why they show strong electropositive or metallic character. As the ionization energies of alkali metal decreases progressively in going from lithium to cesium, their tendency of losing valence electrons also increases progressively. Consequently, the electropositive character increases on moving down the group. That is an important point over here. Oxidation state, they have a common oxidation state as I've already mentioned in the previous class. All alkali metals exhibit only +1 oxidation state in the compounds. Okay, so this is a reasoning, no need for the reasoning over here because we know they lose one electron from the valence shell. Now there's one new term for you all. Maybe it is called hydration energy. Now the amount of energy which is involved in order to hydrate, in order to surround a metallic alkali ion, the energy which is given out or absorbed or utilized, that is called hydration energy in the presence of water. Okay, so remember over here, alkali metal cations have a very strong tendency to get hydrated. So on this basis, if you look at the next paragraph, the process of hydration is exothermic. Energy is given out, and the energy involved is called hydration energy. The hydration energy of alkali metal cations decreases in going from lithium to cesium. That means cesium will prefer to get hydrated more easily. Now, the hydration energy depends upon the charge by radius ratio. Since the radius of alkali metal cation increases in going from lithium ion to cesium ion, the hydration energy decreases in going down the group. That means less energy is given out. Hydration energy is a measure of the tendency of an ion to undergo hydration easily. This is why the tendency of an alkali metals cations to undergo hydration decreases in going from lithium to cesium. Okay, lithium ions are most heavily hydrated. Remember this, underline it also. Lithium ions are most heavily hydrated in aqueous solution, surrounded by water molecules. Then number 10 is flame coloration. You know the flame test which you must have learned theoretically in class 10. Alkali metals and their salts show characteristic colors when heated in a non-luminous flame. That is what do you call this blue colored flame. The color imparted to the flame darkens on moving from the group. Suppose if you take a lithium sample and take it on a non-luminous flame, okay, the color of the flame is crimson, then sodium is golden yellow, potassium is violet, rubidium is violet, cesium is also violet. Explanation: what is the reason for the color of this flame? It is given over here. Suppose when an alkali metal or a salt is heated in a flame, its electrons they get excited to the higher energy level due to absorption energy. Now, the excited states are short-lived. So immediately when the excited electrons return back to their normal states, the energy is emitted. The emitted energy corresponds to the visible region in the ultraviolet spectrum, in the visible spectrum, and therefore a characteristic color is imparted to the flame. So electrons are first sent to the higher orbitals, okay, and this life of the electrons being sent to the higher orbitals because of absorption energy, this state, it is short lived, so the electrons have to fall down again. So when they come back to the original orbitals, there is liberation of energy, and this liberation of energy corresponds to a particular region, energy level in the visible spectra region, and therefore a characteristic color is seen as above. The next one is photoelectric effect. Alkali metals emit electrons when irradiated with light. If light falls on the alkali metals, they emit electrons. The phenomenon of the emission of electrons from the surface of a metal on irradiating with the metal surface with electromagnetic radiation is called photoelectric effect, and the electron thus ejected are called photoelectrons. So here explanation is given. As alkali metals possess low IP, if the energy of the light falling on the surface of the metal is greater than the work function, that is the threshold energy, the minimum energy required to overcome the attractive force responsible for binding the electrons to the surface of the metal, then the electrons present on the metal surface get ejected in the form of photoelectrons. Due to low ionization energy, alkali metals, particularly potassium and basically calcium, cesium also, they have low values of work function, so that can be easily overcome by the light particle which is falling on the metal surface, and that's how they emit photoelectrons easily when exposed to light of suitable frequency. Okay, so after that, coming to the nature of compounds over here. Nature of compounds. Alkali metals form ionic compounds. This is something which I have discussed in the previous class also. The formation of ionic compounds by alkali metals may be attributed to their electropositive nature. They are electropositive, that's why they form readily ionic compounds. The next one is lattice energy. Lattice energy, this is one important word. What is the lattice meaning of lattice energy? The amount of energy which is involved to form the crystals of the ionic compound in the solid state. That energy which is required to hold the cations, the positive ions and the negative ions in a regular crystal lattice structure. That energy which is involved, it is called lattice energy. Now here, the salts of alkali metals possess high values of lattice energy. The lattice energy value decreases in going down the group. So if you move from lithium towards cesium, the lattice energy becomes less negative, it is decreasing. Okay. The explanation is given on page 601. The change in enthalpy involved in condensing required number of gaseous positive and negative ions to form 1 mole of lattice of an ionic compound is termed as the lattice energy of the compound. So example is given over here. Okay, so you go through it with respect to the meaning of lattice energy. Now coming to the chemical properties of alkali metals, I will suggest you to remember the equations. Okay, they are, we know they are already highly reactive elements. The high chemical reactivity of these elements may be attributed to their low IP and low heat of atomization. The reactivity of alkali metals increases if you move from lithium towards cesium in the group down. So the important reactions, action of air, go learn this equation. Action of air, sodium reacting with oxygen, sodium oxide with water, sodium hydroxide with carbon dioxide. Okay. Then number two, reaction with oxygen. Reaction with oxygen. Alkali metals burn vigorously when heated in oxygen. Okay, so here the respective oxides, metal oxides are formed which are basic in nature. Okay, explanation is given over here. Read through this carefully. Okay, then nature of oxides. What is the nature of the oxides of the alkali metals? They are alkaline, basic. Okay, so try to remember these equations. Reaction with hydrogen. Reaction with hydrogen. Okay, alkali metals react with hydrogen at about this temperature with difficulty to form saline hydrides having very high melting points. Reaction with water. Alkali metals react readily and violently with water to form hydroxides, and the liberation of hydrogen gas is seen. Okay, over here it is hydrogen gas. Now, after that, lithium reacts with water somewhat slowly, but the reaction of other alkali metals with water is very fast. It is so vigorous that the hydrogen liberated catches fire immediately if it is not trapped. That's why this is why alkali metals cannot be kept underwater. They react with water. That's why we have to keep the alkali metals under paraffin or dipped or soaked in kerosene. The reactivity of alkali metals with water increases on going down the group. So if you move from lithium towards cesium, the reactivity you will find for cesium, it is the highest among all the alkali metals. Coming to the nature of hydroxides on page 602, the alkali metal hydroxides are white crystalline solids. Please remember this, underline it also. Okay, highly soluble in water. They are highly basic in nature and form the strongest bases known. So basic strength increases if you move from lithium hydroxide to cesium hydroxide. So learn this order. Stability. Alkali metal hydroxides except lithium hydroxides are thermally stable. Lithium hydroxide decomposes on heating, but the other hydroxide they will not decompose easily. Number 5, reaction with halogens. Alkali metals readily, very happily react with halogens to form halides of the type NX. So the reactivity order of alkali metals with halogens, it follows this order. So here you remember follows the following order. That means fluorine has the highest reactivity, fluorine, bromine, iodine to form the respective halides. Okay. Then after that, coming to the what you call this explanation for this, except lithium halides, alkali metal halides are ionic in nature, but lithium halide shows covalent nature. Lithium halides, particularly LiH, possesses lithium iodide. Lithium iodide possesses partially covalent character due to polarization of anions by small lithium ion. Alkali metal halides except lithium fluoride are freely soluble in water. Lithium fluoride is insoluble in water due to the high lattice energy. They possess high melting point and boiling point and conduct electric current in the fused state only. The partial covalent character in lithium halides, it can be explained in this manner. The lithium ion, it's a small ion, okay? So in the presence of an iodine, it gets polarized, okay? But the iodide is unpolarized, okay? So that's due to the small size. It has a high charge density. Due to a high charge density of the positive ion, the lithium ion has a tendency to pull electrons of the neighboring anion toward itself, distorting the electron cloud of the neighboring anion. This distortion of the electron cloud of an anion by a cation, it is called polarization. Remember the definition is required. Polarization leads to the lowering of the charge on both the ions due to partial neutralization of charge and introduces a partial covalent character in the molecule. Okay, so here you have to remember this. That is about polarization. The polarization in an ionic compound is governed by rules known as Fazan's rules. Okay, so here the Fazan's rules are stated once again. Okay, smaller the cation, larger the anion, greater is the extent of polarization in an ionic compound. So better learn this Fazan's rule. The second one is higher the charge on cation and anion, greater is the extent of polarization. Third one is lesser the dielectric constant of the medium, greater is the extent of polarization. That means dielectric constant. The the dielectric constant, it is a tendency. The tendency, like for example, water has a high dielectric constant. It can break the strong electrostatic force of attraction in ionic compounds to dissolve it. That's why if the dielectric constant is less for the medium, then the polarization becomes higher. Then number 4, the polarizing power of cation having the outermost shell configuration of the type S2P6D10 is more than that of the cation having this type. So any cation which have an outer electronic configuration involving d orbitals, it will have a polarizing power which is higher than that having electronic configuration of the type S2P6. Okay, so here example of copper. This had been a question some time ago in one of the competitive examination also. The polarizing power of copper ion having configuration 3s2 3p5 3d is more than that of sodium ion. Okay, because here there is involvement of d orbital electrons. Now that is the reason why CuCl is more covalent. So the very fact that there is involvement of d orbitals in the ions, it makes the compound covalent, more covalent than the other compound, that is sodium chloride in this case. Number 6, reducing nature. Alkali metals, since they are metallic, they act as strong reducing agents. So they can give electrons. This I will not discuss much. Then solubility in liquid ammonia. Alkali metals dissolve in liquid ammonia to form deep, remember this, learn this also, the deep blue colored solutions which are highly conducting in nature. So this also, why it is conducting? Because of the presence of electrons which are called ammoniated electrons, which are called what? Ammoniated electrons. Okay. So the blue color of the solution due to the presence of ammoniated electrons which get excited on absorption of energy from visible light. Further, due to the presence of ammoniated electrons, cations and ammoniated electrons, the solution alkali metals in liquid are highly conducting. So that's important over here. On standing, if you keep it for some time, the blue colored solution of alkali metals in liquid slowly decompose to give liberate a gas. It is hydrogen gas. Okay. Then number 8, nature of salts of oxoacids of the alkali metals. Alkali metals being the most electropositive metals form salts with all the oxoacids they can form. Okay. The salts are soluble in water and are quite stable even at high temperatures. But basically the carbonates and most of the bicarbonates are highly stable towards heat. The stability of carbonates and bicarbonates increases on moving down the group. The carbonate of lithium, that is lithium carbonate, is less stable and its bicarbonate does not exist in the as a solid. Okay, so that you have to remember. Now coming to the anomalous behavior of group 1, that is lithium. Lithium is the first element of group 1. That's why it shows anomalous behavior because of small size, because of the absence of d orbitals and greater polarizing power. Okay, so here lithium, it is the first element. So the important properties in which lithium differs from other alkali metals are given over here point wise. It is much harder as compared to other alkali metals. The melting and boiling point of lithium are much higher. Lithium is least reactive of all alkali metals. Lithium reacts with bromine slowly and decomposes water slowly at 300 Kelvin. Other alkali metals react with bromine violently and decompose water vigorously. Lithium compounds, particularly the halides, are partially covalent in nature and are less soluble in water. Okay, they are soluble in organic solvents such as pyridine. Pyridine is an organic compound. Okay, pyridine, that is pyridine. The halides of other alkali metals are ionic and freely soluble in water. The fluoride, phosphate, carbonate, and oxides of lithium are sparingly soluble in water. The corresponding salts of other alkali metals are soluble in water. Remember that. Number 6 is lithium is the only alkali metal which reacts with nitrogen. So this is a question important. Lithium is the only alkali metal which reacts with nitrogen to form lithium nitride. Other alkali metals do not react with nitrogen. Number 7, lithium reacts with oxygen to form only a monoxide. The other alkali metals, they can form higher oxides, superoxides and peroxides also. Then lithium hydroxide is a weak base, while the hydroxides of other alkali metals are strong. Number 9, the hydroxide and carbonates of lithium are less stable and decompose on heating. So we can decompose the hydroxide and carbonates of lithium easily. Okay, because of its instability. Okay, because they are, we can say talk about their what you call covalent nature. Number 10, lithium nitrate on heating decomposes to give lithium oxide, monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, oxygen. On the other hand, nitrates of the other alkali metals on decomposition give corresponding nitrites along with liberation of oxygen. So this reaction is important. Okay, lithium nitrite, sodium nitrate, even potassium nitrite, they will decompose to give liberate oxygen, but only lithium nitrate gives nitrogen dioxide gas, a reddish brown colored gas. Now, lithium chloride forms a dihydrate, LiCl dot twice H2O, whereas the chlorides of the alkali metals do not form hydrates. The reason why lithium shows anomalous behavior explanation is given over here in 3 points. The size of lithium atom and ion is small. So because of this small size, it has a high positive charge density and consequently it has high polarizing power. So polarizing power becomes bigger. So because of this, it develops a covalent character, partial covalent character in its compounds. That is the first reason. The second one, lithium possesses high ionization energy and less electropositive character as compared to other alkali metals. This accounts for the low reactivity of lithium. Lithium does not possess d orbital in its valence shell. So these are the 3 reasons why lithium shows what you call diagonal relationship. So after that, we'll be moving to the diagonal relationship of lithium with magnesium. It has been discussed in detail. So comparatively, I request you to learn these equations because of similar size of the atoms of lithium and magnesium. The polarizing power is nearly the same. Both are equally hard. That's why we have reactions over here. Hydroxides, okay, weak bases are not thermally stable and decompose on heating. So these are the points which have been discussed indirectly in the previous part. The reactions you learn over here: lithium hydroxide with water with heating, it is liberating water, carbon dioxide over here in the case of carbonates. Then lithium nitrate. If you look at lithium nitrate, it is liberating nitrogen dioxide. Magnesium nitrate is also liberating nitrogen dioxide. Okay. Now, the cause of diagonal relationship. What is the main reason? What is the cause? Why is diagonal relationship happening? Can be explained over here. The diagonally opposite elements they possess almost similar electronegativity and therefore almost similar electropositive character. That is the main reason over here. First one. Then the second reason over here, the diagonally opposite elements possess almost similar polarizing power due to comparable sizes of the cations. So these two reasons you remember for the diagonal relationship. Okay. Then go through the uses of alkali metals. What are the uses? It's mentioned over here. Okay. Then the next part of the chapter, that is some important compounds of sodium. There are some important compounds of sodium which is there in the syllabus, which you have to learn thoroughly. This has to be learned thoroughly. That's very important because it's a memory based thing. So sodium chloride. Sodium chloride, you learn the uses. No need to go through all this, only the uses, okay? Only the uses. Sodium chloride only uses. Nothing more than that. Just a second. Only the uses of sodium chloride, nothing more than that. There are 5 uses, only the uses. Then after that comes sodium hydroxide. For sodium hydroxide, only the principle of preparation by using Kastner-Kellner cell and the uses. So we come to sodium hydroxide on the next page, on page 607. Page number 607, yeah, sodium hydroxide. Its preparation by manufactured by using Kastner-Kellner cell. It is an electrolytic method for the manufacture of what do you call this, sodium hydroxide. Now in the Kastner-Kellner cell, I'll explain this with the help of the diagram on the next page. It is an electrolytic method. Over here, what is done? Caustic soda. Caustic soda is taken, sodium hydroxide. Okay, and then it is electrolyzed. Hydrogen gas is formed over here. Chlorine gas goes this way. Chlorine goes this way. Okay, this is what brine solution. Brine solution is sodium chloride solution. So if you pass current over here, we get to see that what do you call this? What do you call sodium hydroxide is manufactured on a large scale. Sodium hydroxide gets formed over here and it is collected at the base of the tank over here. Okay, so try to remember the name, the principle, only the principle. So over here, what is the principle in the Kastner-Kellner cell? The principle is on passing electric current through sodium chloride solution gets electrolyzed in this manner. Okay, sodium ions and chloride ions. The sodium ion, it forms a sodium amalgam. Okay, and the chlorine, they form chlorine gas. Okay, so in the middle compartment, the reaction is happening between the sodium amalgam and water. Okay, to form sodium hydroxide, which is formed over here. So this is the principle over here. Only the principle is required for the preparation. So go through only the principle. Okay. So due to the formation of sodium hydroxide, the concentration of solution in the middle compartment increases. So we have to take it out regularly so that we can prepare sufficient quantity of sodium hydroxide. Okay. So read through this paragraph carefully. It consists of a large rectangular tank divided into compartments. In the middle compartment, we get collection of sodium hydroxide solution. Okay, so the main principle is we are using electric current, direct electric current, and passing the electric current through sodium caustic, what you call sodium chloride brine solution, brine solution. Okay, and because of the reactions happening between the brine solution and the water over there, we're getting to prepare caustic soda. Okay, and properties are not required. Okay, uses only. Uses of sodium hydroxide is here, only the uses. Okay, so the bell has already gone. Okay, it's already 11:21. So I would like to stop my class here only. In the next class, we'll discuss the sodium carbonate principle and equation of Solvay's process. Okay, so with this, I will end my class here, but just hang on because I need to record your attendance also. I need to record your attendance because that's very important. Okay, okay. So today I've got only 31 students present in the class. Karman Namgil has finally disappeared. Thank you so much, boys. Have a nice day.